Want to know who the best is? That's him, Iceman.
It's the beginning of the end of the beginning. I need to build the nose and cockpit section, tub, whatever, to finish the construction of the big cat. And it's appropriate because if you can listen carefully, my cats upstairs are going nuts. It's that time of night. So what I need to do two broad things first before we start doing some actual gluing in. And so the first thing to do, and I might just zoom in for this, is got to clean up those sink marks. I think I mentioned that in a past video, so just some super glue there. Smooth them down and then do to that side what I've done to this side, and that's to add the rivets. Now I might actually add a black watercolor solution to some of these things before I prime it so you can actually see the work that I've done adding the rivets. So sand that back, add the rivets. I've done a little bit of rescribing just to clean up some of these panel lines, but I'm pretty much going to leave it as is. And then that means I can then get into the modification of these parts. Now the Revell combings were actually half a piece, and they were very, I should have saved them to show you on camera. Maybe I can find the part somewhere online, but they look nothing like these, actually not too bad Tamiya parts. They were just sort of a blob that went over there like that, and I cut them off and actually cut them back too far because if I try to place that in there, yeah, it falls through. So I'm going to have to just slightly build them up. I'll show you how I'll do that later, and also with this back one, which is for the Rio's combing, so it's a little bit too much. Easy to build up with a bit of sheet styrene. So once those two things are done, building those areas back up with a bit of sheet styrene, a bit of epoxy putty, and the riveting, we can get into actually making up the cockpit. So what I'm going to do is use, again, the Tamiya. I'm going to use the Revell base because it fits really well. I don't see a point. I do have a spare Technics 132 scale resin cockpit. Could have done that. I could go, you know, go nuts with all the detailing, scratch build it, add some extra panels on the back here and cables and blah blah blah. Well, no, I've got 31 days to build this thing, and where are we up to now? I think I've only got about 18 days left, so I need to really get into this. So I'm just going to use the Tamiya, I'll put them together. The ejection seats are not too bad. The reason I'm going to use those is because they perfectly fit the crew figures. Okay, no problem at all. I think I just need to modify the pilot's knees to fit over the Revell instrument panel. So the Revell instrument panels are okay. They're not the best in the world, and I've modified them already to sort of, I think that's the right one, to sort of fit in there. Okay. So I'm using Revell instrument panels and Tamiya instrument combings. Is that the right one? Yep, there it goes. So that's in there like that, and there's another piece that goes in there. So let's get stuck into it, and I think the first thing I'll do is sand this back and I'll show you how I do some riveting. So if you missed the last video where I explained how I used this black slow dry super glue to fill in a lot of the sink marks, the major fault with the Revell kit is the fact that it has quite a few sink marks all the way around the kit. Go have a look at part 1 or part 2 where I filled all the sink marks on the fuselage, but let's do them on the cockpit nose here. So I'm just going to use just a basic medium sanding stick there. And the good thing about the super glue is, and I had someone ask the question, does it actually become harder than the surrounding surfaces? And I was like, well, no, not really. This is pretty strong styrene. It's not like some of the weaker stuff. So yeah, just sand it back, and if you really want to, you can apply a coat of primer just to see if it's okay. And I'm not too concerned about sanding into those. Oh, better get it on camera, Chris. About getting it into the panel lines, because these panel lines are chonky as, so that's not too bad. So yeah, basically I'm just applying a little bit of pressure there, not much. Okay, and I just drag my massive fingernails that people always complain I got dirty fingernails, or I don't wear shoes in my videos. It's because it's bloody hot here. Some days it gets to, even though I've got aircon in my office, you can get 35 degrees and it's bloody hot. And yeah, I wish I lived in a atmosphere conditions where I never not wore shoes. That makes sense. I'd like to live somewhere cold, but not right now. So next I'm just going to use a few Infini sticks, and I can't even read the bloody, that's 800, that's 600, so I'm just going to use a bit of 600 just to blend that in. and I missed a bit. So let me just do this off camera because this is boring as that's almost there. And let's use the tried and true wet sanding technique where I used a off camera piece of spit to get that down. I'm going to use the Tamiya 148 scale fuselage nose piece to, that's what I use for the other side, to put some rivets down on this side now that I've sanded back those sink marks. So without getting my big noggin in the way, I'm going to try to do this on camera. I've taken a bit of a survey and try to work it out, and all I basically do is I just start from one panel and move from there. Some of the spacing is wider than others, so that's why sometimes you can use a wheel, sometimes you can use just use a handheld one like this. So where will I start? Let's start at the back and put in a few details there. So I'll just run a couple along the back here. So let's see if I can do it. Now I do this by hand, by eye. Some of you may want to put down if I get the camera, there we go. Some of you may want to draw a line. I just do it by eye. There are some tricks to this, like the way I'm spacing my fingers at the same spot either way to get the right thickness away from the panel there. Okay, and then the rest is just done by eye. There's another trick to it. Let me just show you. We'll try it on this panel here. Let's zoom in even further so you can see what I'm doing. So this square panel here, what I would do is do the corners first. So press in there, one there, funnily enough one there, and oh my god, we're going to do a fourth one. Alright, so to make that equidistant, okay, find a spot in the middle there, that's close enough. Normally I do this with my loop on. In fact, I need to see my optometrist, aka my wife, and get new specs because my eyesight is going to the dogs. I can just see what I'm doing here, barely. You know, I'm approaching the big 5-0 and my eyes are getting worse and worse, and it's all because of you modelling. Okay, so there I've got some rivets down and I just continue the pattern. So I'm just going to check my 148. So I mean, you know, the accuracy is not really there with the Revell one, so we're not going for perfection. And see this panel here, which has all the piano hinges and quick release fasteners, doesn't actually have rivets on it according to the, yep, no it doesn't, so I don't need to put them on that one. But I need to do I need to do that? I can look, like I said, I can barely see. Yeah, I do. Okay, so I need to do this trapezoidal one next, so I'll use the same trick. Put it there, put one in the middle, and then do one either side. Am I getting that on camera? Apologies if this is as boring as bat poo, but there it is. Alright, shall I just do all of it and then miraculously through the power of it? So I've done the riveting on this side, and now I've got to dry fitting the major piece together, and it makes you think. I actually have seen one of these models. Someone's actually built the full front section of an F-14 up, and it's a great little model all by itself, just the whole cockpit. And it's yeah, something to think about doing is actually just building this bit and detailing the hell out of the cockpit. Anyway, a distraction. Alright, what I've done is I've had to, before I go any further trying to fix up these combing parts that I may probably have taken too much plastic away, to try to fit this Tamiya combing, which falls straight through, is to get out the clear parts. Now these clear parts that came in the kit were rattling around in the open with no protection, so they've got a few more scratches and things on them than say a Border Models Lancaster. Check out that link up there. And the fit is okay. It's not brilliant, but from what I've heard with Jim, Jim's models with trying to get the canopy closed on the Trumpeter F-14, it looks like this is a better way. There's a slight, I think there's a slight gap along that sill there, but not really much. There is a gap here at the back where there's been too much. I'm going to have to add some plastic to that little corner. There's a bit of a chip. There's a bit of a gap here as well, which may or may not still be there when I'm finished. But yeah, I've got to be real careful with this front windshield section, because if I press too hard down, you get a step down. Can you see that there? Boom, boom. Okay, so what I need to do is very careful, make sure I don't take away any more material on that outside lip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully trim. I've done on one side, hasn't been finished. I'll trim down this this bit of excess plastic here first, and then I'll start to build it up with some sheet styrene around the inside of that, just so I've got somewhere for this to actually sit on, and then to make it look nice and neat, particularly as it goes towards the front of the windscreen. And then yeah, so this back bit in here, that's going to be really easy. I'll just trim that off, chuck in a bit of sheet styrene stock, actually, just straight there, and that hopefully will take the shelf for the Rio's combing, and then that's done. So just a little bit of care and consideration there. I think I may have to, just exploring this clear part. That's just Penny in the background there, sniffing away. There is another chip in the corner there. I don't think you can see it too well. I might have to build up a bit of material. There was quite a bit of flash, quite a bit of nonsense in there, so I might have to just reshape and add a little bit of plastic here and there, and that's fine when you're on the bottom because that's metal. This is the only glass here is in the middle, so same with the main canopy there. So let's get into some really finicky stuff. I'll disassemble all this and yeah, fix that front. So with the application of a little bit of the old evergreen, making some shelves there in the middle and some shelves there in the back, I can now put the Rio combing in the center and the pilot's combing at the front. I'm just going to let this set overnight and just stay as it is, and then probably I'm going to have to do a bit of finagling and puttying, and I might put a layer of I want to fill this seam in, make that a bit neater across there. That's really easy to do, but I just want to wait for that plastic to set up, and you can see I've just reinforced it a little bit on the inside there. So yeah, and yeah, so there we go. That's ready to go. So I need to go back to nursing my family. I've got some sick spouse and child upstairs to look after, so I'll go and do that, and then get back to this on the morrow.